And then we looked at adding views, text, fields that we could input text in, right? And then we looked at buttons, right, with touchable opacity, right? And then the last thing we did was some navigation between screens using links, right? So file-based navigation. So last week I gave you assignment 2. I posted that, right? And I think we have let's see. Yeah, we have a couple of submissions in already, so that's good. Right, just a few more. Well, the ones who have not yet submitted, if you have any issues with putting together the applications, let me know, right? So we could sort that out. Because next week you're gonna get another assignment, and then you have a third assignment coming up, and then there is the project, right? So I'll introduce that to you all. Right, together with all of this, I know many of you, well, this is a level 3 course, and many of you are working on your projects. So I know that is going to be taking up some of your time. So don't let the assignments pile up, right? Try to finish it as soon as you can to get it out of the way, right? So if anyone has any difficulties with getting Expo to work or get to create the apps, let me know. Now, the thing about this course, well, what we're doing in mobile application development course, we're dealing with the runtime code part of the application, right? And there's the other side of it, which is the backend, the development side of it, where you have different libraries and dependencies and things like that. And I'm not sure what you all may have experienced, but in my testing, you know, I had some errors I had to deal with and check out online for solutions and things like that, right? So depending on how the configuration is set up on your system and what versions are installed, you might have issues with dependencies, right? And for those, you know, you could just check online, check some forums, Google search, ChatGPT, etc., and you could probably get some solutions for that aspect, right? But with respect to the course, we are focusing on the runtime code, so how the application will behave in terms of rendering information and interacting with the user, right? So the dependencies, we're not going to focus too much on that other than just getting the applications to work, right? But for the, you know, a classroom environment that we are in, an academic environment, that's fine. Definitely, if you were creating an application for a production environment, you know, you want to ensure all your dependencies are in order and the app is totally stable, right? Because with the dependencies could have vulnerabilities if it's not properly updated, etc., right? So we will touch on that a little bit, but for the most part of it, I want to get you all familiarized with the runtime code part, right? So we're going to focus on that. Anybody experienced any issues, major issues in setting up their applications? You all did.
Not me.
No. My experience was pretty smooth. The first issue I had was when I tried to set up the navigation, draw navigation. So we're gonna do that today. And I had to install some fixes for that. Right. So we did file-based navigation using links previously. And today we're gonna continue with navigation. So the plan is to look at stack, tab, and draw navigation. And depending on how we're progressing with that, we'll probably take a look at some themes. So light and dark themes, specifically introduce that topic to you in terms of how to take that into consideration when designing your apps. Right? It's an interesting design to put that in as well, right? So let's see how we're going and we'll do that, right? The second assignment, which you'll get next week, will be based on these topics, right? Which is the stack, tab, draw navigation, and light and dark themes. But we'll do some example questions next week to prepare you for that assignment, very similar to last week for assignment 1. So I think everyone should be okay. Right? All right, so let's get started. I'll just present shortly and then I will do the live demonstration, right? So what is this? Okay. And let me record.
Recording in
Okay, class. So today
progress.
we're gonna continue with navigation, and we're gonna build on the file navigation, right? Links one that we did last week. So generally, mobile applications, they will have or comprise of multiple screens, right? It's very rare find one application is one long page that you just scroll down, right? Even the social media apps that have this forever scrolling, there are still other pages in terms of going into settings and your account information, etc., right? So you can have like a home screen where you have probably the main information, then you could get to the further details about the app, adjust settings in the app, and then probably adjust your profile permission, etc., right? So users must have some way of moving to the new screens, right? Selecting the new screens and returning to the previous ones, etc. And that requires some sort of navigation management, right? So with navigation, you could load different screens, right? You could manage transitions, right, to other information in your application. You could store history, and then you could control the back behavior. So you could go back to previous screens, right? So you could think about it as routing between the pages, right, in the mobile application. So the first one we're going to look at, the first type of navigation for today, is that of stack navigation. Okay, so this manages screens in a first in or a last in, first out manner, right? And the concept is when you begin at one screen, right? So you begin at your home screen, right? And then you select a link for your about screen, right? The about screen is actually placed on top of the home screen, right? And if you go to another screen, let's just say you go to a settings screen, the settings screen will be placed on top the previous two, right? So they're kind of stacked on top of each other. And what will happen is, as you go back, you actually will remove or the screens from the other ones, right? So when you go back, you will remove your settings screen, and then you will remain with your about screen. And then when you go back again, you remove your about screen and go back to the home screen, right? So think about like a browser, right? So when you have a browser, and you could go back on the browser to go to the previous page. And so that's a similar concept. So stack navigation is best for drill down flows, detailed pages, forms, and information pages. Okay, so it's like if you're in let's just say you're in a major part of your application and you just want to get some more information, or you want to go deeper into the more details of that, right? So in your profile, you want to edit your profile, you're looking at products, you want to see details about your products, you're on the home page of your app, and then you want to know more about it. Okay, so to demonstrate this, I will reuse or I will add the navigation to the apps we previously built, right? So I'm going to start with the logic gate application. So this is the first application we did. And for this application, what we're going to modify it with is in the app folder, we're going to add a file there. So we had the about and the index file. I'm going to add a file called underscore layout.jsx, right? And this will dictate the layout of the application itself. All right, so let's move on to that. And just stop. And I will switch to my VS Code. Right. Let me share this. Going to move this, I think, yeah. And then I'm gonna share. Right. Right. So this is my screen. And then I need to move the zoom window because that had some issues in the video last time. Okay, so here we have the apps we did in previous classes. All right, so we have the Logic Gate app. We have, well, my first app was the demonstration on the first day. And then we have this simple adder and temperature converter app. All right, so we're gonna make some changes to these. So let's start with the Logic Gate app, right? So the first thing, as I mentioned, is in the app folder, you will add a new file and you will call that underscore layout.jsx, right? And in here, you're going to put basically configure the layout for the application. So let's see, put in the template, RFNS, right? So we have the template for the layout. And let us make some changes to the app. Oh, let me also put my phone on, share my phone, that is. So I'll share my phone on there. Okay. All right. Okay, and then let me get into the project folder. This was the Logic Gate app. FBX start. All right, so start up the application. All right, and then let me okay, great. So this is Logic Gate app we were working with, right? And now we're going to add some navigation, some stack navigation to it. So previously we had the file-based navigation, so about the app and then home, right? So we're going to add some stack navigation to that. Okay, so first of all, we will import stack. So we're going to import stack, and that's going to be imported from export router. Right? So import stack from export router. And then you have to create the stack now, right? So I'm going to get rid of this view. This is the default for the reference code. So we have to create the stack. So that's going to be between some stack tags. And then within the stack, we have to create the different screens, right? So different pages. And in this app, we have only 2 screens. So we create a stack for that by defining these 2 screens. So stack screen, right? And then we could name it. Well, we have to name, the name is the name of the file, right? So the first one, let's consider the index, right? I need to close this. And then for the second screen, this is the about, right? So name. So this is the name of the file, as I mentioned. All right, close that, and we save it. You see to the top here, if you notice, the header, and then there's the back button, right? And with the back button, it goes back in terms of the navigation. So we only have 2 links here, but from the main index page, if you go to about the app, and then we go back to home, and then we go about the app, back to home, etc. The pages are stacked on each other. So to remove the stacks, right? So we're in index, about, right? And back to the beginning. So we could format this a little bit, and you know, there are many different stylings and formatting we could do, right? But I just want to introduce you all to some of them, right? Just to make you aware of it, right? So one good one to have is we could actually change the names of the stack here. So you see by default, it is the name of the page, right? So index and about, etc. But we could change that. So let's just say instead of the index screen, we want to call it the let's change the name to logic gate application, logic gate app, right? Logic gate, right? And if we do this, and we go back home, see it's now changed to logic gate app instead of index. And we could fix this about here, and we can call this, well, we could just say about the app, maybe. Right, just to demonstrate how it could, or changes that could be made. Right? So there are many other things we could do. We could adjust the colors of the text here, etc. Right? And we could also align it, right? So we could center it. So if we go to the stack and we align screen options, and then we say, okay, let's center align those text. Right? So you say header, title, align, and we say center, right? And if you do this, it should move. You see it move to the middle of the screen. So there are a lot of different options you could explore depending on what behavior you want in your app, right? Okay, so that very briefly is the stack-based navigation. Right, so this one is pretty straightforward, but it's probably not the most convenient, right? Even with browsers, not necessarily do you always go back on the browser all the time, right? You tend to navigate in some other way. So the other bit of navigation we're going to look at is the tab navigation, right? So let me just present that. Right. So with tab navigation, you could do some quick switching between major sections, right? So you have all the pages, let's say, available to you that you really want to get access to, right? And you don't have to just move from one page to another, right? So some examples of that, in popular applications you look at, and they have different options available there right on one screen, right? And that uses tab-based navigation. So in WhatsApp, you may have like a chats, status, and call options available to just switch quickly between there, right? And this navigation is basically used when you want to access peer level screens or screens that are all equal in that section of the application, right? So it's not really a hierarchical design where you want to drill down, right? And when you have a situation like this in your application, stack navigation is not ideal. So you investigate something like the tab navigation, right? So with tab navigation, the tabs could be placed at the top or the bottom, right? We're going to place it at the bottom of the screen. And each tab will represent a separate route on the application itself, right? So tabs are considered parallel, where they are just next to each other, and there is no stack behavior where you put or stack the pages or screens on top of each other. Right, so let's see. So in terms of the structure and comparing stack to tabs, stack has a bit of a linear history because you are placing the new pages or the new pages you visit in a sequential order, whereas with tabs, you could select any page you want almost immediately, right? Using the tab selection. The behavior for the stack is a push and pop behavior, and the tab is a switching behavior. With the stack, there is the back button, and with the tabs, you don't really use the back buttons. Usually you just use the tabs to switch between different aspects of the feature functionality you want to look at. Right, and as we mentioned before, stacks has a drill down behavior, and the tabs, you just access different areas of your application. So tab navigation is preferred when you're dealing with screens that are equally important. Right, so if it is you have an application and you ask a user to log in, right, you may have a tab option on that screen to create an account as well, right? The tabs can be used to switch frequent screens, right? And you don't need any quick navigation or deep navigation for tab-based, right? So you could use that in dashboards, calculators, setting panels, similar sorts of applications. So in the configuration, we will use tabs set up in a layout very similar to how we did the stack. And then with this configuration, you may also use icons in your tabs, right? So not only text, but icons. To demonstrate the tab-based navigation, we will use the simple adder app that we created last week. And again, we will create a file in the app folder called _layout.jsx. Right, so let's move on to that. Right, let me see. Well, when we create that, we will import tabs, right? You'll see this, and then we will define each screen on the tab itself. Right, so let's do that. And right, so that's that. Okay. We want to get into the simple adder app, right? So in simple adder app, and in the app folder, we will create a file called _layout.jsx. And in here, we'll configure the tab, right? RF, yes, good. Okay. Let us load this app though. So we need to get out of the the Logic Gate app and go into the simple adder app and PXX start. Right, and then we will scan code. Right, and this is our simple adder app from last week. Right, so you're going to add some tab navigation to this. Right, so as I mentioned, we first have to import tabs. Right, so you do that at the top. Import tabs from Expo router. Right, and then we will, very similar to the stack, right, we will add we will add everything within our tabs, between the tags, right? So the tabs, right? And within the tabs tag, we're gonna add the different screens. Okay, so we have 3 screens this time. So let's define them, right? So tabs.screen, right? And it's very similar to the stack. The first one is going to be the index, right? So the main page, right? To close that tag, and then I just copy this, and we can just reuse, right? The second screen is going to be let's say the second screen is the add screen, and then the final screen will be the about screen, right? And if we save this, and we look to the bottom of the app now, we see the different tabs, right? So we have the index, the add, and the about. So this is your file-based your tab-based navigation, right? Tabs are it. But we could format that some more. So I'll just demonstrate some formatting that could be done. So the first thing, just like with the stack, we could put a name for the tabs, right? So right now the names, if you're seeing it, it's a bit small, but the names are the names of the pages, right? So this says index, add, and about, all in lowercase. So let's put some names on there, some titles. So options, and you're gonna put your title, and let's call this home. Right, if we save that, we should see. So you may have, if you didn't see it, the index tab, the name title of it changed to home, and then we're going to change the title of the ad page. We just simply call this ad. You don't want it to be too long. And then the title of the options or the about page. Yeah, let's call this about, right? About. Right, so now we see the names were changed, right? So we have home, add, and about. So that's one bit of formatting that you could do. Also, you notice at the top here, you have this header, right? There's an option to remove this header. I think it gives it a bit of a cleaner look, right? So to do that, we can go in the main tabs, tag, and set screen options, right? And we can set that header shown to false, right? And we can get rid of that, right? So the header is no longer there. I think this gives it a cleaner look, right? So we have our tabs, home, add, about, that we could use to navigate the application, and then we could change the name, right? Another, well, now that we have the tabs, we don't need the navigation links, right? So we could go back to the pages and remove that. So let's go to the about page and remove this link, right? So let's say we don't want to navigate using those links anymore. We go to the ad page, remove the links, and then to the home page and remove those links there, right? Because now that we have tabs, you don't need the links. We will just switch between different aspects of the application using the tabs, right? Okay, good. Another another bit of formatting I want to show you with the tabs is you can add icons to it. So right now there's kind of a placeholder for the icon, right? If you can see it, it's like a rectangle with a cross on it, that's an X, right? So let's add some icons, and to do that, there's a website that has a list of icons that we could import, right? I'll show that to you. Right, so the name of the website is icons.expo, right? And on the index page, there's a list of icons. So it's a really interesting site that you search for the icon you're looking for, and then you could configure it on the application itself, right? So let's see. So the first page we have is our home screen, right? Was it the home? I think so. Yeah. So the first page is the homes, well, the index that we're calling home, right? So let us, right. So let us look for a home icon. So if you type in home, I so see there are many different types of home icons here. Let us use this one, right? So one really nice thing about this website, or this, how it is presented here, when you click on the icon you want, it tells you what to import and then what code you need to include in your application, right? So it's pretty cool like that. So first, you just import, you copy it straight off the website and you import that. And then from the website, you copy how to insert the icon, right? But to do that, we need to just add a little bit more code here. So that's going to be in the options. And here you're going to add what is called the tab bar icon, right? And then this is a bit of a function, right? And in here, you will put the code you copied, right? So if we save this now, we should see, you see the home tab. I don't know if you see, I don't know how small it is for you all, but the home tab now has a little house icon. You all seen that clear enough? Anybody want to tell me? Or too small?
That's really good.
It okay? All right, good.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that for the other ones, right? So let's look at the next tab is an add, right? So let's look for something kind of illustrate that. So maybe a calculator. So yes, yeah, calculator, CLC, reality. All right, so there are different calculators again, right? You could choose one. Let me choose this one. Yeah, I'll choose this one. Did we use awesome 5 with this? No, it's just awesome font. Okay, so we have to import awesome font awesome 5. I'm using this. Okay, so we import it, and then we have in our code, we have the code to render the component, right? So we go back now to the add screen here, and we need to add another option, and this is going to be the tab bar icon, right? So we set it up in the same way. That, right? And if we save it, we should see the calculator show up here in the middle for the add. So that's nice. And then finally, in the about screen, let's add one icon for that. So let's see what it has for about. For about that's not the about you're looking at. So it's more like a kind of a information, right? Info RM, more like information. So for that, we could use a information circle like this. So similar thing, we could import the for that there if it wasn't there before, and then we copy how to get the icon in there, right? So you all could play around with that and search for icons that are appropriate for whatever application you're doing, right? There are many different icons you can go through. And then within the icons itself, you could change like the color and things like that, right? So we try that shortly. Let's add the tab icon. Let's just add it initially. Right, and then okay. Right, so now we see our about has this thing, right? So we could change the color for that. So if you want it, let's just say you want it red for some reason, right? So it turns red, right? So you could also make adjustments to colors and sizes, because this is a size 24. If you want it bigger, say you want it at 30, right? You could increase the size, right? If you want it smaller, etc. Right? So many different details you could modify with this aspect, the all aspect, right? So I mean, when it is you're creating your applications, right? Definitely take a good look at the documentation. There may be certain options in there that you might be interested in having, right? All right. So that's it for, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it for tab-based navigation. Right. The next thing we're going to look at is draw navigation. So the draw navigation is when there's a bit of a pull down. Right. So let me just switch to the presentation. Right. So yeah, so this is some stuff on tabs. Right. So I put the website in the notes for the to get the icons, right? And if it is you had to import ones from ion icons, you could import like that. Right? And you could add the tabs to the screen, you could increase the size, you could adjust the color, etc. Right? So that's it for tab-based navigation. And the next navigation we're going to look at is draw navigation. Okay, so the draw, might be familiar with it. It's normally on the top left-hand side of your application, right? And then when you select on it, you get some other options, right? So we see it a lot in Gmail and Facebook, and YouTube and stuff, right? We see the icon on the side where you could get like the history, you could check different mailboxes, etc. Right? Now, the draw navigation is good for when you have a lot of screens that exist, right? So imagine you have probably 6 or 7 different screens, right? If you have tab-based navigation, that's not really ideal. You know, you're going to have very small icons, and then it's going to be difficult to select, right? And in terms of the size of these buttons, also there's a recommended size, right? 40 pixels, right? But we come to that when we discuss user interface stuff later on, right? And yeah, and you also don't need all the screens visibly at the same time, right? And you want to have a menu style application, right? And that could be really nice, like if you have maybe a website with or an application with different options or different features. You know, you can just pull the drawer to the side and see all the different features. Okay. So we could have this for like a settings or profiles or multiple tools that you want to have in your application. Okay, so what I was doing, as I mentioned, the user interface stuff. So the objective in the course for me is I want to introduce you all to many of the concepts, right? So the hands-on concepts, so that you can have that foundation to work on your projects, right? And after we do these concepts, then we get into the theory. So not much theory, but just to formalize some important information, some theoretical information about mobile application development. So we do that afterwards. And then based on that information is what we're going to have the small quiz on, right, in class. All right, so let's continue, right? So draw-based navigation. So if we were to compare the different models, right, that we discuss. So for stacks, you have one screen on top the other, right? And you could use that for like tasks or looking at different information that are in sort of a linear way, and they are placed on top of each other, and then they are removed from each other in the last and first out manner. Right. The second one is the tabs, and that is used for frequent switching. Right. So you just want to keep going back. You know, let's just say you're in screen A and you want to go to screen C, and then you want to go to screen B. You don't want to go back all the way. Right. And then lastly, we're looking at the draws model or the draw navigation. And with this navigation, you're going to have a menu that is pulled out, and then you're going to have the different screens there. All right, so for this one, we're going to have to install a dependency. Okay, and I had to do some research to get it to work on my system. So I'll record what I did, so you all will see if this applies to you, and that would be great. If it is you experience some other issue, right, you could just, you know, you could check it out online and see how to resolve it. But for me, the issue was because I had some dependencies that were at different versions, right? And I had to kind of make some overrides in the configuration to get that to work. So anyways, let's get that to work. Oh, before we do that, let's go, we're going to demonstrate this in the temperature converter application, the one that we did, last one we did last week, right? So let me just switch to that application first. Just see the 10. Let's expose that. And just make sure it works. Right, so this is the app from last week. Conversion, home, about the app, right? Okay, good. That is it. So, right, so I said the first thing is we will install the gesture handler and the draw package, right? So let's do that. All right, so you do that in the project folder. Right, so that will install, and I will get some errors. Yeah, so I got some errors related to some discrepancies in dependency version, right? So after checking that out, what I had to do was I had to make some changes to my package.json file, and I had to force a version for React native worklets, right? So I had to force my version to 1, and then I had to override what was there, right? So I have to make that change, right? And then after I make a change, I need to go back here and I need to install some legacy peer dependencies. Yes. Right, and then finally, I will rerun the command to install the gesture handler and the draw. Right. So with that, it installed. So we now have that information to set up the draw. Okay. So if it is you do experience that when in setting up the gesture handler and the draw, so this is the command for it, right? So this first one installs the draw and then the gesture handler. Okay. What you could do is you may have that same issue where you need to set your native React booklets to a specific version. Okay, so that's recorded on the session now, so you could always come back to this recording to run the commands, right? All right, so let's continue now with setting up the draw itself now. So just like the other 2 types of navigation, we are going to create a layout.jsx file underscore layout JSX in the app folder, right? And we will insert RFNES, right? The reference code in there. Okay, and what we have to do is we are going to import the draw, right? So import from expo router draw. Okay, and we will put all the different, we're going to define all the draws into one draw tab, right? So just like with the stack and the tab-based navigation. All right, so let's put the different draw screens now in there. So we're gonna have 3 draw screens, the index, the converter, and the about. So we're gonna set those up. The screen, and this is gonna be name. So remember, this name is the name of your file. All right, then we just close this tag. I'll just copy this, paste it 2 times, right? And we're going to put this as the converter. And then lastly, this as the about. Maybe right? Was it still? I just start back up. Right. So if we save this, let's see if the draw shows up. Right, so you see at the top, the draw came up there, right? So it shows index because we're on the index screen. And if we click on the icon there, we see converter, and then we see about, right? So we could do this navigation there now. So that's the draw navigation. So just like the other navigations, we could make some adjustments to the how it's displayed, right? So we're going to add a title to it, right? So in the index, we're going to call this, you say options, and this is going to be the, we're going to set this to home, right? And then we will say for the converter, options, and we call this converter. And then finally, in the about options, we will call this title. You can say it's probably about, right? Simply. So we save that. We're going to change the names, right? So now the names are home, converter, and about, right? So we adjusted the names for each different screen in the draw. Now, so now that we have the draw navigation, also we could remove the links, right? So let's go to the pages and remove the links from here. So about, yeah, remove this link. I go to converter. We can remove the link to home. And then we could go to the home page, and in the home page, remove the links to the about page and the converter page, right? Right, so we don't need the links anymore. We have the draw navigation. So if we need to switch from one screen to another, we just simply use the draw, home, converter, about, let's see it still works, right? So 98 Fahrenheit to Celsius, right? 36 degrees. Okay, good. So it seems to work, right? All right. So that is it for the draw navigation. Okay, so with that, you all can create an application and then implement different types of navigation to move between the screens, right? So there's and each type has its benefit, and it depends on what is better for the user experience, right? So if it is you want to set up stack or tab or draw, right? Based on what's better for the user experience, and then you design your app for that. But you have different options. And then within each of the options, you can apply different stylings to it. Okay. So you could have icons, right? You could change the names, you could change the colors, the fonts, the alignment, etc. Right? And those three different types of navigation, well, it's 4 types we learn really with the file one, but those three are the major types that you would see in applications itself, right? Mobile apps. Okay, so let us move on now to light and dark themes. Okay, so let's just get to that. Right. So we have on our phones and even on the computers, right? We have light and dark themes that is not like it is a partially cosmetic, right? So some people prefer like a dark theme where you have dark backgrounds and the text, etc., is light, and then some persons prefer the light ones, right? But it is something that helps with accessibility, with eye strain, like in the night, particularly the dark themes may be better, right? It helps with battery utilization. And then, well, from the cosmetic part of it, user preference, right? And then professional app quality. You want to have your app being able to have options for different users, right? One part of your projects, you have to talk about accessibility and what you did in your application or your solution to take that into consideration. So if it is you're dealing with an application that supports light and dark themes, that could potentially be something, right? Because it will help reduce eye strain, right? So that helps with accessibility. Okay, so most modern operating systems, right? They provide this sort of appearance and functionality. So on your phone, I mean, you could set up light mode and dark mode, and then you may be able to also set it up to automatically change based on, you know, the time of day. So you could set up the phone so that once from sunset it switches to dark mode, right? And then at sunrise it switches to light mode. Okay, so that automatically adjusts the mode. All right. Now, generally with themes, so that's the concept we're going to use in the application, right? So we're going to develop the application using themes, and it's a centralized collection of user interface style values. So what you're going to do is you will be setting specific values for different aspects of the application that you will reuse. Okay, so if you have a certain like color scheme or designs in terms of the borders, the fonts, the spacing, etc., you basically create like a master sort of theme, and then you apply the theme. So it's a bit similar to when we use the style sheet, right? And then we apply the style sheet to the container or the image or the text input. But for this one, you're actually setting the theme for the entire application, right? You're setting the styles for the entire application, right? And in addition to that, your application will be able to adjust dynamically to the setting on the user's device, right? So if it is their device is in light mode, the application will switch to light mode. And if it's in dark mode, it will switch to dark mode automatically. Right, so that's pretty interesting. Now, light mode, generally, there is a light background, right? So a bright background, and text is typically dark, okay? So the background might be white or something close to white, and the text may be a dark color, black or something close to black, right? And then the buttons may also have like a dark color, right? So you could adjust all these things as need be. So this is preferred in bright environments, right? So in bright environments, you want to have what you're focusing on to be like a kind of contrast in the color. So if it's a bright environment and the font is darker, you're able to focus better on that. Similarly, in the dark mode, it's the opposite, right? So in dark mode, the environment is generally dark. So you want what you are focusing on to be in a contrast to that, right? Which is light. So for dark mode, the background will be a dark background, like black or something close to black, and your text will be a light color, so white, gray color close to there, right? And this also helps remove glare when having this sort of theme setup on it, right? Now, with the application we're going to build, there is an option to automatically detect what mode the device is using, right? And to do that, we're going to use this function called use color scheme, and it will detect if the device is, if the application is being run on a device that is in light mode or dark mode. So we'll demonstrate that shortly, and you'll see what happens there. Okay, now how do we set up these themes, right? So it's a centralized theming, meaning that it is something that's applied to the entire application. So all the screens you're going to apply, you could apply this theme to it after you define it. So generally what we would do is, if we want to set the background color to, let's just say, the container, if you want to set the background color of the container to white, you know, we just basically hard code that color in there. But with the centralized theming, we will set the background color to the theme.background, right? So, and where background is defined as a color in the theme files, right? And that way, if it is, let's just say you were using white and you decided to update that to a gray or some shade of gray, all you have to do is change the where the background color is defined, right? And then the entire application will be updated for that. So that's pretty good. Imagine your application has many screens and you want to update like a color scheme. You don't want to go to each screen and just manually change the colors, right? It's good to have like a reference sort of user interface color scheme, and then you change it from there. Okay, and that gives you, all right, yes. So once you change that, it updates everywhere in your application, right? It's quite scalable, of course, right? Doesn't matter how big your app is, it will update, right? And it gives you a nice clean architecture. You don't forget to update in the screen, etc., 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 right? Now, with the themes, you could update or you could define any aspect of your application, any component. So you could look to define the color of text in terms of text within the app, of text within a title, the background color of an app, the text color within a button, within a text. So it's very detailed and comprehensive, but to demonstrate the application to you, I will just make it pretty simple. So I'm just going to show you how to apply the theming to just two things, right? Which is text and background color. Okay, and then from that, you all could build and apply to buttons and all these things, etc. later on if you need to. Okay, so to set this up, first in the home directory for the project, you will create a folder called theme. And then in that theme folder, we will add two files. So the first file, which is the themes.js, and that will have the color palettes. So that will have all the color coding that we want for each theme. So we look at the light and dark themes. And then there's a theme context.jsx, right? And that there now is your global theme provider. So when it is you create your different screens, you're going to basically reference that theme context sort of setup to apply the color schemes, right? We see how they're going to work shortly. And basically what's going to happen is the system, your phone or your device will get the color scheme, right? So the application will determine the color scheme from the phone, whether it is light or dark. Based on that, the theme provider will be applied to each screen, and then the screens will pull the styles from the themes.js. All right, so the first file we're going to create is the themes.js, right? And in this file, we will define basically what sort of color schemes we want when it is in light mode and dark mode. Right, so for our example, we're just going to simply set the background to a light value, and then we're going to set the text to a dark value. And then for the dark mode, it's going to be the opposite, right? We're going to set the backgrounds to a light value and the backgrounds to a dark value and the text to a light value. So let's make that change here now. All right, so let's go into yeah, so we are here. All right, so first thing is we want to create our new folder. Yeah, we're going to call that theme. And then within theme, we're going to create two files, right? Themes.js, and then we want to create theme context JSX, right? So just these two. So let's deal with the themes.js first, right? Right, so as I said in here, we're going to define the color schemes for each of the themes. So essentially what we're going to do is we're just going to set up one for the light mode and the dark mode. So we're going to export constant light theme. And then here we're going to define what we want for different aspects of the app. So we're just going to look at the background color, right? So we're going to say we're just going to say back, GROUND, right? And we're going to say this is white. And then we're going to set the text to black, right? Now, as I mentioned before, you could set different things, right? So you could put like a border if you wanted to something. Nope, a border. If it is you want to put a button color, if you want to put something for text input, all these things. You could define all these things within the theme here. But to demonstrate it, we're going to focus on the background and the text, right? And then let's do another theme. We could just copy this for the dark. Right, so dark theme. And we will just reverse it, right? So for the background, we will set a dark background. And then for the text, we will set a light text, right? So white. All right, so remember, we could get the whole color scheme if you want to, right? Remember how we do that? Just something like 53, right? And then when you have this color palette shows up, you could actually choose whatever text, if you're not familiar with the exact shade, you could choose whatever shade you want from here. Right? So if you want this shade, for example, right, which is not white, but it's close to white. Right, let's just say you don't want black, but you want something close to black. I think black is, no, that's white. Yeah, so we're gonna get something close to black. Right, so just shift to this side here. And before you get something close to black like this. Right, so you could basically play around with the colors and see which color suits your application the best. Okay, so for now, let's do this. So this is our themes.js. And we define the color scheme for the light theme and the dark theme, right? So light theme, we're going to have a light background, dark text, and for the dark theme, we're going to have a dark background and a light text. So that's first. The next thing we're going to look at is we want to look at the theme.concept. So let's just so the other thing is the theme.context.jsx. So as I mentioned, this is a global system theme, and this is how you're gonna set it, right? So then the themes you're gonna apply is for all the pages within your application, and all screens or pages will get access to this theme, right? So we set this global context object, right, to store the theme, and then we will basically allow all the children or all the different screens to have access to that theme. The function use color scheme that will read the system's setting automatically. So what that means is your device settings. If it is your device is in dark mode, it will read what your device has. And if it's in light mode, it read what it is configured to, and it will automatically return to the application what the system is, and it will then set the application into that mode respectively, right? And right, okay, well, okay, to explain this, let me just use the application here for that. Right, so that's theme.context, right? I'll just paste this here, and then we'll go through it. Right, so where is it? Right, so theme.context, right? So this here is the code that you would use, right? And what it's saying is, let's go through it from top. So what it's saying is you will create this theme provider, right? That will be used by all the screens in the app. And this theme provider is going to use this value theme, which it gets from the system, right? Whether it is light or dark. And how it gets it from the system is using this use color scheme. Okay, so first we're going to set the scheme to use color scheme. So it will basically retrieve from the system if it is in light mode or dark mode. Then the theme will be dark, right? If the theme is dark, you're going to use the dark theme, which you define here, right? Dark theme. And if it is not dark, then it will be light theme, right? So that's what this piece of code here does, right? And then you apply that light or dark theme within the entire application itself, right? So these are the two files. So this file, you're not really going to make much adjustments to it at all, right? This is going to be a file you use as is, and then you apply it, the other information, to the application screens. This themes.js, you would make adjustments to this if it is, you want to have different colors for different aspects or different components, right? So buttons or input text sort of colors, etc., right? Okay, so now that we have that, let's see how we apply the theme to your application, right? So how do we do that? Okay. So first we're going to go to our layout, right? And then from here we will import the theme provider, because remember the theme provider is where we're going to get the system settings from, etc., right? So we're going to import theme provider, right? It automatically populated there. So what it's saying is theme provider, we're going to go one folder up because this is an app folder. So we're going to go one folder up into the root, go into the theme folder, and then get theme context. So that's what that is saying there. And then we're going to wrap all the drawers into this theme. Okay, so you're just going to put the theme provider tag, right? And we're going to wrap everything here into this theme. So you're going to set this up like so. Oops. Copy instead of yeah. Just right. So set up the theme there in the layout. Right. Next, let's now go and update the themes on the different pages. So let's start first with the index page, right? So to apply the themes now, because remember, what we're going to do is instead of using something like this, which is color blue, we want to use a color that is based on the theme that we define, right? So it's going to be color, and then it's going to be a dark color if it is in light mode, or a light color if it is in dark mode. All right, so first thing first, let us import the use theme. Import use theme from here, right? Because remember, let's go back here, right? Use theme, right? So the use theme here is going to give you the theme context, whether it is light mode or the dark mode, right? So that's what we're going to use here. And then what we will do is we have to define the theme, right? So we're going to basically retrieve what is the theme from the device. So you're going to set a constant variable here, and we're going to say use theme, right? And this will return whether it is light mode or dark mode. All right. What we could do here, because if it is your just pull this up. Yeah. So this is what we're going to make changes to. Right. Right. And what we're going to do is instead of color equals blue, we're going to set it to the theme, right? So it's going to be theme dot, and then it is text, right? So what this is saying is the theme is going to return either light mode or dark mode, right? So if it is in, regardless of which mode it is in, you want the text color to be what is the color that is defined here, right? So that's what we're doing. So we're saying the color is theme dot text. So the text color of whatever theme it is, right? So that's the first thing, right? Also, let's set the background color of the container, right? So background color, and we're going to set it to the theme dot background, right? And same thing here. What happens is the theme is set to the color of the background as defined. And if you all noticed, when I made that change, the color of temperature converter, it changed from blue to black. and then the background changed from, I think it was white before, right? Or gray or something. It changed to white, right? So you see theme change here. So now let's check to see if it changes in dark mode, right? So let me switch my phone into dark mode. Right, so my phone is in dark mode now, and it doesn't switch, right? Let me just switch around. Yeah, it doesn't switch, and it doesn't switch for a reason. That's because by default, these applications are created in light mode. There's a configuration that sets it to light mode. So you have to go into package.json, right? And not package, app.json. And you see here, user interface style, it is in light mode by default. So you need to change this to, you need to change this value to automatic. And this would basically sense what is in the device itself. Right, so automatic, right? And then, yeah, I think I need to restart. Yeah, right. Right, so if I scan now, right, so you see here now right, so you see it's in a kind of dark mode now, right? But that font I selected for the text is not a good font. So let's adjust that. Themes, let's put this white. Right, so that looks a little better. Okay, good. All right, so that is your index. So you see it change from the light mode to dark mode. And now let me switch it automatically now and show you. So now if I put back my phone on light mode, the text automatically changes back, right? Dark mode. Dark mode changes to dark, right? So you see the automatic switch over there. So that's a pretty interesting setup that you could have for the application. And as I mentioned, right? So I'm only doing the background color of the application and the text. Okay, and what we're going to do next is, what I'll do is I'm going to make the changes to all the other screens. All right, so let's make it to the about screen. All right, so we'll just do it in real time and see here. So in the about, first thing we're going to do is we will import use theme. All right, then we're going to set our constant theme, use theme. All right, let's move our colors, our styles up here. Right, just like so. Right, and instead, okay, so instead of blue, we're going to put theme.text. Right, depending on what theme you're on. So we're going to see a switch, right? The background is still light because I didn't change the container, so don't change the background color. Theme.grd should change to that. Good. And then our app text was different, a different style, so we need to change the color here to. All right. Okay, good. So now we have the home and we have the about. Okay, so let's just do the converter as the last screen. And with converter again, we will import your use theme, and then we're going to set constant theme equal use theme. And we're just going to move our styles up. And right, and we will adjust the styles, right? So in the container, we want our background to be based on the theme, background color. If we update this, it goes dark. We want our text title instead of blue, We want it to be theme.text. Right, so that goes light. And we could change our, we could leave the result like that, that's fine. Right, but you all get the idea, right? So with the themes, you define the color scheme you want, and then you would make the adjustments. Right, and again, you demonstrate that, right? You could go on your device, it is in dark mode. I could put it back on light mode, and everything will change back to the light mode color scheme. Right, and that is that.
Recording
Right,
stopped.
so with that, we discussed the different types of navigation, right? The stack, draw, and the tab navigation, and we did light and dark themes. All right, any questions on it? Was it okay, or was it too difficult to follow?
I just had to watch out the video and take my time and do it step by step.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, because that's one of the things when I'm putting together the content for the course. You know, these things could go into so much detail as I explained to you all, but I want to put it across in a way so at least you could understand at least the foundational stuff, and then you could build on it, right? And the assignments are going to be based on that, right? Just the foundational stuff. So just a reminder about the assignments, right? Don't forget you all have to submit assignment 1. Okay, that's up and posted. If anyone is having difficulties, just let me know, right? And we will, you know, we could always meet, or we could go through it in class, etc. The next assignment you have, it's going to be based on, these navigation styles, and it's going to be on the themes. So we will discuss that further next week, right? So we'll probably end there today. Before I go, let me just do a quick roll, right? So I see Nafisa is here. Liam is around. I see Liam. Ronaldo.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Ronaldo. Shivanan. Shivanan is here.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Shivanan. Zachary.
Yes, sir.
All right, Zach. Hey, Zach, by the way, Joseph messaged me today, right? So I basically gave him the same information I told you, which is once the other groups finish, the earlier ones, you have to begin.
All right, sir. And Aaron and Stefano emailed you?
Oh yes, Aidan messaged me also, so they are coming early. It's only Ricardo didn't confirm, so I don't know if he is doing that. But once you guys come, you could leave when you're finished.
All right.
All right, I'll see you tomorrow with that. Okay, Majid is here. Aaron Lewis. All right, Aaron, as I mentioned, right, I know you joined in a bit late, enrolled late. So if you have any issues, let me know, right? The rest of the lectures was similar to this, where everything is kind of recorded and step by step. So if you have any problems, let me know, and we'll go through it. Darius. All right, thanks, Darius. Azaria, I didn't see Azaria come.
Present.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Azaria. I see you now. Jonathan. Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Keldon. Right, and Michael.
Present, sir.
All right, thanks, Michael.
Yeah,
all
brilliant.
Thanks, Keldon. All right, guys, so that's it for today. The only issue or complication you all may experience is when you're setting up installing the gesture handler and the drawers, right? As I said, my workaround or my solution for it was to adjust the native worklets and then run the commands again. So it's recorded on the it's recorded on the lecture here. So I'll post that recording up. It's also going to be on the notes, some of the commands. If you have any issues with that, you let me know right next week. Any questions from anybody?
Yes, so just quick, the assignment you have up to the 26th for this one to upload it to Canvas, right? If you can upload it tonight.
Yeah, if you can't upload it, take your time, right? That's no problem if you're working on other things. But it's just there to kind of help you focus to kind of space out your work also, right? Because I don't want too much things piling up. So if it is you all need the time, you know, take the time, but do them as soon as you could, right? And if you have any issues, again, let me know.
Okay.
All right. So if no more questions, guys, thanks very much. Have a good night, and I'll see you next week.
Excuse me, Majid
Yeah,
wanted to know
Shivanan.
if you put him present.
Who's that?
Majid.
Oh, Majid. Yeah,
yes.
Majid. I put you in. Thanks. All right, Shivanan. Thank you for that. Okay, guys. Take care. Good night.
You too, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'll see you tomorrow.